No meetings have taken place regarding even the basics of the position, as the club hierarchy have prioritized salvaging the season, so they've told him just to focus on coaching. What we do understand is that the role is not expected to be very hands-on. It will circle around providing insights on innovation and scouting best practices, so there will be some distance between him and the club.
Manchester United are meant to be at the beginning of a new era at the club. That is what we've all been sold to a large degree. Manchester United want to restructure internally. Man United are going to build a new philosophy, a new culture, a new structure at Manchester United. This is what we have been promised on a very regular basis over the course of the last 9 years. I was called out last night on the Top 6 show for wanting success too quickly, for not being ready to dig in and be prepared for the long haul. And I don't think that could be further from the truth. Manchester United do need a rebuild. But before we start thinking about the types of players we're going to buy, the manager that we want to instill to kind of lead this from a playing point of view, the internal goings on at the football club have to be resolved, have to be looked at, have to be fixed. And as Melissa Reddy just reported there, United are already looking at the Ralph Rangnick situation for me in a very dubious way, to say the least. I'm very, very skeptical about this approach. They'll say the right things, that we just want him focusing now on coaching. We want to try and salvage the season, try and make the top 4, and we'll focus on the future of the club later. But I can't help but think this is the wrong way to go about things. In my professional career, I've walked into environments where firefighting is needed. You need to put out a fire that's in place right now. But it's been very doable in those circumstances to also start working on a plan for the future as well. So the fact that Manchester United have had, as it sounds, no meetings, and there is no clear role said to be there for Ralph Rangnick, as of course Pochettino and Eric Ten Hag lead the shortlist. This, for me, as a Manchester United fan, is extremely worrying. Man United have not internally outlined the nature of Ralph Rangnick's consultancy role, but Sky Sports have been told that it is not there's no envisions of it being very hands-on. No meetings have taken place yet with the interim manager regarding the design of his future position, which comes into effect on June the 1st. And this, for me, is shocking. And this needs to be focused on more than nearly everything else. We're less than 3 months away from his new role, from a new manager coming in, and there's no clear plan. There's no clear design, which means if we're waiting until the end of the season, we're going to put this together in about 5 weeks. Man United are going to design their plan for the future to fix the club in about 5 weeks. This is just an abomination. It's an absolute abomination. Now, the PR's already coming. Richard Arnold is said to be very different to Ed Woodward. Wants to collaborate greater with the staff. Wants football people making football decisions. We want to use Ralph to tap into his knowledge. I just smell the same media BS and PR. And the worst bit for me is I see fans buying into it. I see fans listening again. And of course, we have to give the club time because there's nothing else we can do but wait to see what happens. But I believe we have to remain skeptical, and I believe we have to keep our foot on their necks. Who we put in place is key. There's lots of things to fix at Manchester United. The club have also informed Sky that they have a pretty good idea of who the individuals are that are leaking the dressing room information. and they are keen to erase a self-serving culture. This club is never going to erase a self-serving culture until the board remove their self-serving culture. Can't they see that whether you're Gary Neville that thinks these players shouldn't be out gallivanting and putting it on social media, whether you're someone that thinks that Pogba shouldn't be having haircuts and dancing, whether you're somebody that doesn't think Rashford is focused 100% on football, whether or not you think Martial's too moody, whether or not you think we're recruiting the wrong players like AWB and Bruno, can't you all see that the self-serving culture at the club is derived from the owners of the club, from the way the club is run? It's an absolute disgrace. It is an absolute disgrace. And as per another report yesterday, and this is me being frustrated from a personal standpoint, it is now reported that it's highly unlikely that Ralph Rangnick will become the sporting director at Manchester United. Highly unlikely indeed. There is a junior role, a deputy role, which Man United are looking to offer to ex-Liverpool coach Andy O'Boyle. The Red Devils are hoping that he can help John Myrtle with the mammoth task of returning the club to its former glories. Ralph Rangnick's at the club. Ralph Rangnick is one of the most respected DOFs in the world. So we're going to consult with Ralph. And by the way, this is not going to work. This non-hands-on approach, this we'll give you a phone call once a fortnight, mate. Ralph's going to go and find another job and then not be able to do that. We are going to lose his knowledge. We are going to lose his expertise of running and building clubs. We are going to end up going backwards and splashing big cash on the wrong players, switching managers, switching systems midway through the rebuild again. And we're just back on the hamster wheel. This is devastating news if I've ever seen some in my life. It's the complete opposite of what Manchester United Football Club need. And I'm not going to have a pop at Andy O'Boyle here. He's currently head of elite performance at the Premier League, where he helps formulate programs and innovations to advance performance management. I don't really know what that means, but that's what he's doing. Former Liverpool coach. He's got some background in the game. He isn't an absolute nobody. He isn't somebody that doesn't have any kind of pedigree whatsoever. But there's lots to be fearful here as a Manchester United fan. Huge things to be fearful of as a Manchester United fan. And interestingly for me, something I was told last night, which I found to be very disconcerting indeed, is that come this summer transfer window, there is a chance that the Glazers could take a very pragmatic approach. There are claims that they have told potential managerial candidates during preliminary talks that the club will only purchase players it can adequately afford this summer. And spending north of £150 million is unlikely. Now, I'm not somebody that believes you have to go out and spend big bucks all the time. There are deals there to be done. Example being, Declan Rice at £90 to £100 million for me serves less value than Basuma and Ruben Diaz coming in for less money. You can sign those two quality midfielders who improve us tenfold in that area from a technical standpoint, an athletic standpoint, controlling game standpoint, more passing range, more energy. That's a better piece of business than dropping £100 million on Declan Rice, in my view. So if we are shrewd, it will work. But the thing that's making me kind of very nervous is we're not looking to give one of the most shrewdest directors of football in the world in Ralph Rangnick a full-time job, or at least a hands-on consultancy role where he's in the club day to day, to allow him to make this cook. They told him in January, loan signings max. We don't want to do any spending now until the new person's on board. And I said back then that for me was a terrible, terrible sign of things to come. The fact that we're on the 22nd of March and we haven't announced who our new manager is going to be is absolutely disgraceful. And there is no amount of PR that can cover this up. The reason Man United haven't announced their manager is they don't know who their new manager is going to be. They haven't decided yet on the direction of the football club. It's why they didn't sign. They tried to sign people in January and got told no by a few. A few of the bargain deals that were out there, they got told no. players were like, yeah, do you know what? We're not too sure. And the reason those players are not too sure is because Man United don't know where they are. Man United don't know where we are as a football club. And that's the biggest problem here. Not is Rashford going to get his form back? Not should Pogba get a new deal? It isn't even who the next manager is going to be. It is the club deciding on an approach, on a plan. And again and again and again and again and again, what do we see? We see this club procrastinate. We see this club dilly-dally. We see this club not know whether it wants a Poch future. And forget Poch the manager, Poch style, Poch type players. Let's go in that direction for the next 10 years. And even if Poch doesn't work, we need another manager who plays a similar style with a similar ethos, with a similar man management approach, so that if we do drop £300 million in over 2-3 seasons on players, we don't now need to do what's being reported under the Ten Hag appointment and maybe have to overhaul all of that again. If you look at Arsenal as an example, they're building a very good squad. If by the end of next season, the board say, do you know what? We think Mikel Arteta has taken us as far as he can go. Let's say he maxes himself out and he just doesn't have the ability to go to the next stage. The only mistake Arsenal can make in that circumstance is going for a manager who has a completely different outlook on football, that wants to completely rejuvenate the squad, the team, the ethos, the style of football. Because it means you start again for all intents and purposes. Unless that new manager thinks that the skill set of players in there can adequately switch very quickly. But that only happens if the styles of football are relatively the same. Look at Tottenham. One of the biggest issues Tottenham have had, yes, there's a quality issue at the club, but they tried to go from a Poch style to a Jose Nuno style. They're only now just starting to get things right under Conte. It's been years. It's been a long time now. It's been a couple of years plus since those things have been going on. So they've tread water that whole time, sunk a little bit, swallowed a lot of water. And I look at Man United, and that's my fear. We are going down that same route again. And it's because of all the debates online about this player versus that player, this CM versus that CM, this CB versus that CB. These micro penis competitions, as I call them, are distracting Man United fans away from the real problem. Now, it's hard enough hearing this news. It's doubly hard hearing it from Melissa Reddy, who is, as far as I'm aware, is an absolute staunch, diehard Liverpool fan. That just adds a little bit of salt into the wounds. And I mean that with all due respect to Melissa Reddy. She's brilliant at what she does. But that's where my focus is. And my focus isn't going to move away from there. This club does need a cultural reboot, or whatever word you want to use for it. But I am not believing anything they're talking about. Because when you read between the lines in these stories, we are essentially giving ourselves 4 or 5 weeks at the end of the season to decide on our future. This should have been decided months ago. The fact that Ralph's only being told to focus on training right now and they're not tapping into that knowledge is abysmal. Myrtle and Fletcher, I don't want to be overly critical on them, but they've been around at Man United. They've been part of the sinking ship of the club. They've been part of the poor decision-making. They've been part of the bad recruitment. And they seem to be given a lot more power and control over what's happening next. You brought somebody from the outside in with a brilliant track record who seems to be a bit part. It's weird to me. It's weird to me. It feels a little bit like I'm trying to make an album. I'm trying to make an album that hits best. And I've got Jay-Z in the room. I've got Ed Sheeran in the room. But do you know what? Because I'd already employed Peter Andre before them, because Peter Andre is already here in an official capacity, I'm listening to Peter Andre's footballing opinion more than Jay-Z and Ed Sheeran's. That's how this feels to me. Ralph Rangnick must be sitting there thinking, what is wrong with this football club? Because for me, guys, as I've said, it's an abomination. But I want your thoughts and I want your feelings about Melissa Reddy's report. Talk about not very much money being spent in the grand scheme of things this summer. Going above 150 million, which is, by the way, is going to be needed in the modern day world. 150 million doesn't overtly get you that much anymore. Are we going to go for a kind of Arsenal approach and buy cheaper, younger players? But if so, are we going to actually maintain that new build, that new cultural reboot, stick with the system and the philosophy of the manager that comes in? I'm not too convinced. I want your thoughts and I want your feelings, people. Make sure you smash that like button before you leave. Subscribe to the Football Terrace. Check out the offer that we have up here. I know you can see it right now. Go check it out. Some discounts for you available. Until next time, take care. Goodbye. God bless.